Good morning, everyone. Welcome to an online meeting of RBKC's Licensing Subcommittee, and thank you for attending. I'm Councillor Pat Healy. I represent Dalgarno Ward, and I will be chairing this meeting, which is being held via Microsoft Teams and is also being streamed live. The committee for this hearing consists of myself, Councillor Charles Williams, and Councillor Malcolm Spalding. Councillors, please can you introduce yourselves?
Yes, I'm Councillor Charles Williams, Councillor for Redcliffe Ward, and I have no interest to declare in this matter.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Malcolm Spalding. I'm the Councillor for Earls Court Ward, and I have no interest in this matter. Thank you.
I should also have said that I have no interest in this matter. We are joined remotely by Paul Phelan and Laura McGowan from the Council's licensing team, our legal officer, Lindsay Lemazurier, our committee officer, Yasmin Yama, who will be monitoring all of our connections and help with any technical issues we may have. She is supported by Gareth Ebenezer, Tom McColgan and Hannah Koskela. Before we start the hearing for this case, just a few ground rules, please. Keep your microphones on mute until you are invited to speak, and please make sure mobile phones are on silent. Keep your cameras on when not speaking if you want to, but we may run into connection problems, so it's probably advisable that you only turn your cameras on when you're speaking. Please note that the Microsoft Teams chat function is not monitored, so please do not use it. In addition, this is a public meeting and the chat would not be seen in the live stream. Everyone should have received the procedure of this meeting regarding the use of cameras and how to connect back in if you lose connection. Thank you. The case before us today is to grant a licence for Kensington Express, number 11 Old Brompton Road, London, SW7 3HZ. The quorum for this committee is 2. As there is always the possibility that I may lose connection temporarily during the broadcast, I'm nominating Councillor Williams to be appointed as the substitute chair. Members, please confirm whether this nomination is seconded. Councillor Spalding.
I beg to second, Chairman.
Thank you very much indeed. I confirm that Councillor Williams has been appointed substitute chair. Thank you, colleagues. For clarity, I will outline the procedure of the meeting, which, as already said, has been circulated with the papers and is available online. First, the licensing officer, Paul Phelan, will give a brief outline of the application. Please could you confirm your attendance?
Good morning, Chair. Present.
Thank you. Then I will ask the applicant's advisor, Mr. Stuart Gibson, to present his submission. He will have to have up to 10 minutes to do so. Please could you confirm your attendance?
Good morning, Chair. Yes, I am in attendance.
Thank you very much. Once that has happened, questions will be asked by members of the committee of the applicant. Questions may also be asked by objectors. And after that has been concluded, the objectors, Jane Hewell and Charles Lawton, will present their objections. They will have up to a maximum of 10 minutes each to do so. Please can you confirm your attendance? Jane Hewell. Hello? Is Jane Hewell with us?
Yes, I am. Apologies, I had difficulty coming off mute.
It happens to us all. Thank you. Charles Lawson.
Yes, I'm present.
Thank you very much.
Cool.
After the objectors have presented their cases, questions will be asked by members of the committee. The applicant can also ask questions of the objectors, and after that we will ask our legal officer, Ms. Lemazurier, to deal with any questions she may have, for example, regarding any conditions. Please could you confirm your attendance?
Present, Chair.
Thank you. Finally, we will turn to the governance team to see if any issues have been raised that we need to consider. There will be no summing up and the meeting will end. I would like to remind everyone that the committee has read the papers, which comprise the main pack and additional submissions that have been circulated, so there is no need to repeat their content. But please do draw our attention to certain points and pages, and Yasmin will move the document on the screen for us. So let's get going. Mr. Phelan, can you outline the case for us, please?
Thank you, Chair. Good morning. Today's application has been submitted by Mr. Baslingham and Mr. McKean for the grant of a premises licence at Kensington Express, 11 Old Brompton Road, London, SW7 3HZ. Today's application for the grant of a premises licence seeks to sell by retail of alcohol off the premises from 8 AM until midnight, Monday to Saturday, and from 8 AM until 10 PM Sunday. The applicant has also applied for the provision of late night refreshment outdoors from 11 PM until 5 AM, Monday to Sunday. However, this has been limited to hot drinks only. The applicant has stated as part of their application that the premises trades as a retail convenience store open 24 hours a day. This application did originally attract representations from both the Metropolitan Police and the Council's Environmental Health Noise team. However, both the police and noise team withdrew their representations following the applicant's agreement to reduce the hours sought for the sale by retail of alcohol, limit late night refreshment to hot drinks only, and to include as part of their application those proposed conditions found on page 6 of today's papers. 10 representations have been received which oppose this application. This includes a representation from a local ward councillor and 5 from local residents associations, namely the Melton Court Residents Association, the Prince's Gate Mews Residents Association, the Pelham Residents Association, the Furlough Owners and Leaseholders Association, and the Onslow Neighbourhood Association. A summary of these can be found on pages 5 to 7, with copies attached at Appendix C on pages 35 to 44. Council's records indicate that no complaints or temporary event notices have been received in the preceding 24 months in respect of this premises. That concludes the summary of this application. I'll leave it there for now. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Phelan. Now for the applicant's case. Mr. Gibson, please can you make your presentation?
Thank you, Chair, and good morning. As we've heard, very concise and very good introduction to the application. This is an off-sales license application, which originally, to put it forward, the original application was for a 24-hour license to sell alcohol off the premises, and late night refreshment was applied for between 2300 and 0500 to complement that, simply because the premises trades 24 hours a day, as you've heard. And in the spirit of the Licensing Act, which states that off-sales premises should be able to sell alcohol the hours that they are actually open, unless there are relevant representations from responsible authorities such as the police, then that application should indeed be granted. Now, that is what the original thought was. And we were obviously mindful of the fact that this was out with the council policy hours from the outset. And as I'm sure you're aware, Chair, whilst the policy is not absolute, there needs to be compelling reasons to deviate from the policy. And in this case, it became very clear very quickly that there were no compelling reasons to deviate from your policy. And so after consultation, starting with the police, the hours were amended to reflect the framework hours of the council. As I've said, extensive negotiation, and you probably have seen the email trails for both authorities with the police and environmental health, meant we agreed additional conditions which have been outlined on many occasions in my additional submissions. I don't know if you heard of that. That was at your end or mine?
I'm afraid it's my end. I have 2 computers on.
That's okay. Sorry. Okay. In my submissions, page 2 and 3, the additional conditions agreed with the authorities are listed. However, obviously, I'm aware you've read the submissions that I've made. I don't wish to go over them in detail, but I do want to highlight key conditions that we agreed that, in my view, make a material difference to this application. Firstly, to confirm that late night refreshment will be for hot drinks only. One of the strange facts of the Act that late night refreshment includes not only hot food, but also if you wish to sell hot drinks after 11 o'clock at night, you need permission on your premises license to do so. This is purely to offer hot drinks, and also a condition would be added, should this be granted, that no food would be cooked on the premises, so no hot food would be offered to customers at all. In terms of the police, just to mirror what's been said, The hours were reduced from 8 o'clock in the morning till midnight, Monday to Saturday, and 8 till 10 on a Sunday. We also took the step of agreeing with the police that no single cans of beer, lager, cider would be sold at the premises. Now, these premises are open 24/7 regardless. That's not a matter before you today. That was no doubt dealt with by the planning authority in previous times. So the question in terms of late night refreshment is, would the sale of hot drinks undermine any of the 4 licensing objectives whatsoever, given the premises is open anyway? I think the answer to that is quite clearly no, it wouldn't. And I would see it more as a benefit than a hindrance to be able to offer customers who are up and around at that time a hot drink at whatever time of the evening it is. So, as a result of these negotiations we had with the authorities, the police, who are, after all, the primary guardians of crime and disorder, agreed to the grant of this application. And the environmental health, who are the primary guardians of public nuisance, also agreed to the grant of the application. So, as a result, we had no responsible authority objection whatsoever. And as has been said, we were left with a number of interested party objections. And the main reasons for the objections seem to be the 24/7 alcohol sales as the application originally submitted, and the subsequent problems in terms of crime and disorder and nuisance that would bring. There was also concern that the sale of hot food between 11 p.m. and 0500 to be consumed on the premises, outside tables were mentioned. Again, the problems of nuisance that would bring. Well, just again to confirm, Chair, neither of these will take place. The application has been amended so that can be removed from any of the objections and the concerns that the representations have. Street drinking was also mentioned as an issue in the area, but we feel we've offered conditions that ensure that that is not going to be an issue from this particular store. We've offered a condition that no beers, lagers, ciders of above 6% will be sold from the premises, apart from a pre-agreed list in writing with the police of certain premium lines that may well be stocked. And that's really because of change in the kind of product mix that has happened over the last few years. In days gone by, showing my age here, but back in my day, the strong beers, lagers, ciders were things like Tennant Super and Carlsberg Special Brews, and the drink that your typical street drinker would enjoy, shall we say. But over the last few years, there's been a number of European lagers come onto the market that are generally in bottles, and they carry an ABV of maybe 6.5, 7.5%, and are very popular and mainstream drinks that are available now on the market. And this is the type of line we'd be expecting pre-written agreement with the authorities to say, yes, we can stock these lines, but everything would have to be in writing and agreed beforehand. To come back to say no single cans or bottles to be sold of beers, lagers and ciders, once again deters your typical street drinker who wants to come in and buy the single unit. They cannot buy a single unit, they have to fork out more money, they will be dissuaded and go elsewhere where they can get their single drink. So measures have been put in place to ensure street drinking does not increase or become a problem because of these premises. Now, coming back to the hours are, as I've said, the council's policy hours. And I'm very well aware that council's licensing policies are not arrived at lightly. There's extensive research. It takes a long time to set the policy out. There's consultation with the authorities, businesses, residents, people like myself are asked to contribute when policies come up for renewal. So a great deal of work goes in formulating the policy and to arrive at the policy the council wished to adhere to. These hours that we have agreed to with the authorities are, in fact, the framework hours and form part of the council's policy. And my question before you today is this: why have a policy if you're not prepared to enforce it? Policy says midnight for the sale of alcohol or off sale. That's what the consultation has said. We are asking you to apply your policy and grant the application to midnight. As I said earlier, policies are not absolute. But there does need to be a compelling reason to step outside this policy. And quite frankly, from the objections before you today, there isn't one. It's interesting to note that the objectors are not against this application. There was a late submission coming in email form a couple of days back, which basically said we would withdraw our objection if you agreed to fall into line with the other premises. And I think 2315 was mentioned. I think it's Waitrose as a 2315 license. And the reasons given for an extended hours till midnight would, well, if you get midnight, then everybody would want it. And then we don't want that. We don't want everyone having it. Now, that I struggle to sort of accept, because as I've said many times this morning, your policy says midnight. So if those premises such as Tesco's, Waitrose and anyone else wanted midnight, they are at liberty to apply for midnight. It is well within the council's stated policy. They haven't. Just because this particular premises may be granted a license till midnight isn't going to send the rest of them rushing to make an application for an additional hour or an additional 45 minutes. The cost, the time, the expense, the workload to do that, quite frankly, would make it unworkable and unreasonable to do so. Finally, and worth mentioning, it was very helpful that the licensing office submitted yesterday a set of draft conditions that contained the original conditions from the application, the agreed conditions from the authorities that we did over the 28 days, and also some amended conditions that the licensing officer put forward, really just to tidy up a few things within the potential conditions. And those would be conditions that would be added to the premises license should you be minded to grant this particular license. It's just worth noting for the record that we are very happy to accept in entirety those conditions put forward by the licensing officer. We find them very helpful, and we find that they would be a benefit to the application should it be granted. Chairman, just to conclude, this premise is not alcohol-led. You will see from the floor plan that roughly 25%, if that, of the premises space would be turned over to the sale of alcohol. It is not an alcohol-led business. It's a convenience store, and it's an opportunity for customers to be able to come under one roof and buy their convenience items without having to shop 2 or 3 different places. It doesn't always follow that somebody coming to buy a drink late in the evening is a drunk. Those are myths that have long been dispelled. People, lifestyles have changed dramatically. People are up at different times, working different shifts, working different hours, and it is convenient for people to be able to come in and pick up what they want under the one roof. We don't believe midnight is an excessive hour. The premises will stay open, but the alcohol will be locked away outside of those times, so there will be no opportunity for anyone to gain access to alcohol beyond those times. Chair, it's for those reasons that I invite the committee to grant this application, as outlined by the officer this morning and the submissions I have put forward over the last few days. Happy to take questions on what I've said this morning, and thank you very much for your time.
Oh, Councillor Healy, you're on mute.
I do apologise. I somehow went on to mute. Thank you, Mr. Gibson. That was very helpful. Questions, please, from the committee. Councillor Williams.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. Mr. Gibson, I think on this committee we often find it's very helpful when there are objections from local residents and associations are generated by an application. When the applicant engages with the objectors, sometimes this can lead to all objections being withdrawn. Has there been any attempt to engage by the applicant in this way?
Thank you, Councillor. The engagement really came from myself 7 days ago, where I submitted my draft submissions, which were circulated to all the objectors, outlining the changes we'd made to the application, outlining our reasons for why we're asking for the application. And we had one response from one of the objectors a couple of days back saying, no, we still wish to proceed with our representation. But that was in my understanding, the sum total of the negotiation with the interested parties. As you've heard, there was extensive negotiation with the authorities over the 28 days.
Thank you. Yes, but I mean, the point is that what I was talking about was engagement, both before and indeed at the committee meeting, by the people who are going to run the premises. So I wondered why the applicant chose not to join you today.
Councillor, somewhat surprised because I spoke to them at about just before I logged on, about 9:30, and was assured that one of the two owners would be online here, and I'm trying to look along the line to see if his initials are there. But I was told one of them would get online. As I say, I spoke to them at 9:30 and advised them they should be here.
Okay, well, we have to sort of, obviously, they're not obliged to attend, but it would have been helpful. I mean, I think I was actually going to raise an issue which was alluded to, and this really, I think, not so much a matter of conditions, but to stress the importance of this issue, alluded by one of the objections, Mr. Good, which is this. It is an area where, I mean, in the immediate neighbourhood, there are no such off licenses, and there are at certain times of day, I think not the late evening, very large numbers of young people, as was mentioned in the objection from the lycée and also from those visiting the museums, and therefore the importance of rigidly applying the Challenge 25 procedure must be emphasised.
Most certainly, Councillor. I know from speaking to the applicants over the process that they're very aware that the conditions that they have agreed to through me and the conditions that perhaps would be added to the licence should it be granted, they're very aware of the fact that should they breach those conditions, that the review process sits in the background and they could lose their business. It's extremely important to convenience stores to be able to offer the sale of alcohol because, to be honest, Councillor, the majority of convenience stores do, if we get through. And whether we think it or not, we as a member of the public, our perception when going into a convenience store that doesn't offer what we expect gives you the impression not a very good store, won't come back. You might not think that at the front of your mind, but it's there. You tend to go to a place where you can get everything you want. And if everything you want means a bottle of wine to go along with your pasta and your bread and whatever else you're buying, then that's what it is. If I have to then go to somewhere else to buy my bottle of wine, I really might as well go somewhere else to begin with and not bother with the store. So it is vital. It's one of the destination purchases that you make as a customer. I'm just nipping out for a couple of beers. I'm nipping out for a bottle of wine. I'm nipping out for a loaf of bread, a packet of cigarettes. These are the things that people physically go to the shop for. And whilst they're there, they might buy 3 or 4 other things because they see them. But I came for the wine. I saw dog food. I saw biscuits. I saw crisps, and I bought them. If I didn't go for the wine, I wasn't buying the other items either. So it is vitally important to the success of these type of businesses that you're able to offer the key items that people want. And to put that at risk by taking a blasé attitude to say we don't care who we sell to is absolute folly. And to be quite honest, I say this in public hearing, any retailer who does that deserves all they get. And I know these guys certainly want to protect their business because they're very keen to do so and would invoke Challenge 25 at every opportunity.
Thank you. That's all for the moment, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Spalding.
Thank you, Chairman. A couple of quick questions. In the absence of the applicants, which is unfortunate, can somebody could you tell us, do they have any history, any experience, any expertise in running an inner city convenience store in an area, as Councillor Williams correctly says, that is frequented by a lot of school children and a lot of children visiting national museums? Now, that's particularly sensitive because if you get large school trips, the kids are all going to go into the nearest shop, and this is the only one. Yet what you've described, I would say, was a typical suburban convenience store. That worries me because this isn't. This is what it ain't. This is a heavily populated major international tourist destination for school trips, and there are a couple of large schools in the area. And if the applicants had been here, we could have teased out. This is not a small suburban convenience store. No, that's completely wrong. So can you reassure us the applicants are aware of the sensitivity of this location?
Thank you, Councillor. Yes, I can. As I say, they're currently trading the store, and they currently trade 24/7. They sell other age-related products such as cigarettes and so forth without complaint. The police have raised no concern with the applicants, having done their background researches, and they believe that these applicants are capable of running a business in the manner in which they are expected to do, granted the location. I fully accept what you're saying. It's not a suburban convenience store, quite the different, and obviously you are going to have an influx of younger people, as you mentioned, but the vigilance is there. The DPS that is put forward is an experienced DPS. It would be wrong of me to reel off where he's run businesses in the past, because I don't have that information in front of me. So I don't want to surmise he ran this, he ran that. But I know he's not a new licensee. He's had his personal license for a while now. And I believe, yes, they will run a business, very mindful of the fact that they have to protect not only their own business, but protect the local area as well, and ensure that no alcohol is sold to minors.
Thank you, Chairman. Sorry, Councillor Williams, give way.
No, I just want to clarify one point. Sorry, thank you, Chairman and Councillor Spalding. This is the former Prontoprint store, isn't it? Because I walked up there a couple of days ago just to go past the premises, see the context, and there was no business there. It hasn't been done up or anything. Are we talking?
Councillor, I offer my sincere apologies. Yes, you are quite correct. This current business is in the process of being developed. Previous businesses they have run 24/7, and that was my getting things muddled in my head. I do apologise. This is the Prontoprint business that is being developed.
Thank you, Chairman. My second quick question for the applicants is, again, the special nature of this store. Around tube stations, notoriously in this borough, in other areas, we have a lot of experience of street drinkers who are attracted to these locations because they can beg from tourists. And as soon as they've got £2, they'll go straight into the nearest convenience store and buy alcohol. And that's their lifestyle. And it's sustained by begging and convenience stores. Now, in other places, shops like this have given an undertaking that they won't. You said we're not going to base this convenience store on sales of alcohol. That's not at our forefront, and we're aware of street drinkers. Now, that has led to other responsible stores not displaying alcohol in their front windows, but keeping the alcohol well to the back of the store. And as you say, they don't want to promote alcohol as a main plank of their sales. They would sell the odd bottle of wine or a pack of beer to local residents who want to use that alcohol domestically. So do you think there's anything we can do to make sure alcohol is not pushed into the front window?
Certainly, Councillor. I fully agree with you, actually. Happy to offer a condition that no advertising of alcohol will be made in the window graphics that perhaps the store will utilise. The display of alcohol, as you can see from the floor plan, is 40% behind the counter, which is not accessible to the customers. And what isn't behind the counter is directly next to the counter in full view of those working at the premises. You've got in open sale, you have a wall meterage, and then you have a chiller to take beers and lagers and white wines that would be chilled. Now, I would take this further, Chairman, because I'm very aware of the issue with street drinkers. And let's look at it from the other side of the coin. A lot of convenience store retailers do not want street drinkers, because if they have a reputation of this is the type of customer who uses the store, then you're not going to go in. I'm not going to go in. I'll go somewhere else where perhaps we believe the clientele who use the store is better. It gets the store a reputation that hinders sales in the long run. It doesn't grow sales. And I would take this further and say, although we have agreed with the police that no single cans or bottles of beers, lagers, ciders will be sold, that infers that you could buy 2, and that would be acceptable. I'd be happy to take this further in light of the area, in light of what we're trying to achieve here, and say minimum 4-pack. That is going to take a lot of consideration, because as you say, they beg for a couple of quid and whatever. I've got enough money to buy a drink, and in I go. They don't have enough money to buy 4. And as soon as they get enough to buy something, they're going to go where they can buy something. They're not going to come to the store because I have to end up with, I don't know, £6, £7, £8, whatever it may be, £5, £6, £7, £8 to get something. So I'd be quite happy to add a condition here today, if it would be accepted to the committee, that a minimum of 4 packs for beers, ciders, lagers would be sold from the premises, along with the line of the strength, as we've touched on. To be honest, a can of Carling or a can of Carlsberg isn't really what your typical street drinkers look for. It's not going to give them something of the high strength, yet maybe, but we're not selling those lines, save for the premiums that I've spoken about. Don't come cheap. They carry a retail price to them. So again, if we were saying these can only be bought in packs of 4, you're taking it outside of the price range of the street drinker. And they are going to very quickly realise there's nothing for them here and move on somewhere else where they will try and get what they need. I think that's as much as we can do to deter street drinking in the area. I don't believe it's going to be an issue from this premise.
Well, thank you, Mr. Gibson. And just thank you so much for those 2 extra conditions that you volunteered about not displaying alcohol or alcohol-related material in the front window, and selling packs of 4 or more. Thank you very much. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Do the objectors have any questions for Mr. Gibson? Ms. Royal first.
Thank you. Yes. I'm just slightly surprised because the agent had referred to my letter to the licensing authority about the concern with the area, and I'm surprised because he didn't actually record it accurately, and actually if he had read it, he would have seen me say that both Tesco and Waitrose and multiple other premises had applied for a later license and had it refused. That was my logic, and I had in fact said as an invitation I would be willing to withdraw my application if he would cut the hours to 11:15. There's actually been no engagement, and I wanted to ask why neither he nor his clients had actually spoken to any of the local residents, because that would be normal to understand an area, particularly when you're bringing a new off license effectively to the area. So why was no one actually willing to speak to residents?
Mr. Gibson? Mr. Gibson?
Yes, sorry, I'm just unmuting myself. Thank you. Unfortunately, the applicants are not here. I cannot answer for them in that respect. In terms of engagement from myself, it is normal. The way I operate is to issue the draft submissions a week in advance, which then can facilitate whatever conversations are necessary. We had as I say, as she quite rightly says, we had the email back saying 23:15 is what has been applied for. And I'm well aware of the fact that it says in the email that these premises had applied for a midnight license, but it had been refused due to their objections. Yes, I'm well aware of that, and councillors, I'm sure you are as well. It kind of reads that the way you could look at that, and I didn't really make a big thing of it in my submissions because I didn't see it as being necessary, but it kind of reads as we just have to show up today to get what we want. And I don't think that's the case before you today. We've done it before. We'll come and object and you'll get 2300, 2315, so withdraw now, basically. I come before you today asking you to uphold your policy. The policy says midnight. If the policy was to be 23:15, the policy would be 23:15. And I'm asking you to look at this application and consider it on its merits. And does it fall within what can be granted within your actual licensing policy? Not the licensing policy of a number of residents, but the licensing policy for the council. And that's really what we're here today to discuss. Thank you.
Thank you. Do you have any further questions, Mr. Earl?
I found that last intervention rather discourteous, but I think it's probably more sensible for me to just speak at my appropriate slot. Chairman, thank you.
That's coming up. Mr. Lawson, do you have any questions?
Thank you very much. The only question I have at this stage is to have some clarification as to what Mr. Gibson said about these premises, the Prontoprint premises, because as I understand it, he originally said that these premises were already trading as a convenience store, whereas I'm not actually in London at the moment, partly because of COVID, but the last time I was there, which was about 4 days ago, there was no indication of it being a convenience store. And Prontoprint, the sign was still up saying Prontoprint. And so I am somewhat confused by that. And also, do I understand that he has no knowledge of these applicants' prior reputation as convenience store managers, and what their previous experience is? Those are 2 points.
Mr. Gibson.
Thank you, Chair. I think we've already clarified, and I put my hand up 10 minutes back, 15 minutes back, saying I got this in my head wrong. The premises is the Prontoprint store, and the premises is not trading. That is, I said that already, and it's on record that I did. The applicants have run previous businesses and run 24/7 businesses, and that was just purely an error on my part. As I said, he's an experienced, the DPS is an experienced DPS. He's not a new applicant. He's not somebody who's just coming into the business for the first time. They have run previous businesses, and they're investing a lot of money into this one to get it up and running. Now, the reason perhaps nothing has happened to date, and it's not uncommon, this is quite common, a lot of applicants will wait until they have the grant of their premises license before they plough in thousands of pounds in refit, because perhaps this business model doesn't work. As I outlined earlier, the importance of the sale of alcohol to a convenience store, with the alcohol, perhaps this is a business that may not work for them, and they're looking to ensure that they have perhaps the license granted before they commit to that level of expense. But apologies once again if in any way the committee and the people present here were misled. This is not trading as a 24-hour convenience store at this moment in time. It is a Prontoprint store to be developed. And again, apologies.
Well, all I'd say is that seems to rather undermine your submission that alcohol sales are not an important element of this business proposition. If it were, then there wouldn't be a problem of going ahead with the refit, because alcohol wasn't going to be a major issue. But if it's, from what you just said, clearly alcohol is going to be a significant feature in the new store.
As I said to one of the councillors' questions earlier, like it or not, alcohol is a destination purchase. It's a reason why people go to a store. One of the reasons why they go to a store. A loaf of bread, pint of milk, newspaper, cigarettes, bottle of wine. These are the reasons I'm nipping out for. It's a convenience store. It's not somewhere where you go and get a trolley and browse around all the shelving and gondolas and pick up what you see. You're going specifically for something. In and out very quickly, get on with your life. That's what a convenience store. Alcohol, like it or not, is one of those reasons. And if they don't have the alcohol, then that customer goes to another store that does. So it is important in that respect that it is one of the destination reasons why people go to a convenience store. It isn't important in the respect that the whole store is going to be alcohol-led. It's not. There's about, if it is, it's round about 25%, maybe a little bit less, of the selling space, less than that, I think, turned over to the sale of alcohol. There is a whole lot of other things on sale in that shop. It's just alcohol, as cigarettes are, as whatever, are a reason why people go there. And they then pick up 3 or 4 other things when they are there. And that's what makes the difference. And it can add to the basket spend of the business quite dramatically. A customer who maybe twice a week buys alcohol because that's what they have, a bottle of wine with a Sunday dinner or whatever it may be. The day they buy alcohol, that basket spend goes up by 5, 6, 7 quid, 8 quid. And it makes that makes all the difference to these convenience stores at this moment in time, because let's face it, things are pretty difficult and will remain so for a considerable period of time.
Thank you, Mr. Gibson. I believe that one of the owners has actually joined us. Is that the case? If so, could you identify yourself, please? Looks like I've been misinformed. Mr. Lawton, have you finished with your questions?
Yes, Madam Chairman, I have.
Thank you. Ms. Wheel, you have a hand up. Do you want to ask a further question, or are you going to go on to present your own case?
Madam Chairman, sorry if this is not correct, but I actually saw a name, Nifras, join the meeting, who I believe is one of the owners. So I was wanting to ask him the same question, which was why they hadn't engaged with local residents. But if he hasn't joined, then obviously his attempt to join didn't work.
Well, I have asked him to identify himself and he hasn't done so, so I have to assume he's not here. So we'll move on to the objector's case. Ms. Will, would you like to present your case? You have up to 10 minutes.
Thank you very much. And just to clarify, I'm speaking on behalf, at their request, of another objector, the Pelham Residents Association, also the Brompton Association, which has members directly in the vicinity of the premises, and indeed my own street, Princes Gate Mews. Thank you. I think could we possibly have the map of the area on the screen, just so I can explain it? I think just to clarify, what we are actually seeking is in absolutely the application of the council's licensing policy. There is absolutely no question of us ever assuming we would just turn up and get what we wanted. That's not how things work. It's not appropriate. There needs to be a balance. However, this is an area with a known long-standing series of alcohol-related problems. And the reason why we objected when other premises in the vicinity asked for a later alcohol license was because of repeated evidence that that caused problems, and indeed so much evidence that the committee applied the licensing policy, and because of the concerns about the licensing harms, actually cut back the request for the later license. Now, as you can see, directly opposite the premises is a large apron outside the station. This is a key area where people accumulate late at night, sit on the ground, and drink alcohol. Similar problems also take place in Thurlow Street. If you just cut straight through the arcade into Thurlow Street and the bottom end of Exhibition Road, there are repeated problems with alcohol, street drinking in all of those areas. And indeed, there was even a full-blown pitched fight at the front of the Bill Nose, which spilled into the street. Again, that was people who were attending late night entertainment spots. They had tanked up on alcohol in convenience stores because it is cheaper, then tried to get back into the club, were refused because they were inebriated, and it turned into a full-scale fight. It's been a particularly unusual period, so it's not surprising there haven't been complaints or the same level of issues during the pandemic and the lockdown, because most of the problems were effectively resolved by the fact shops weren't open. But this is an area with repeated difficult problems. Indeed, there's a drinker who literally sits on the street outside Tesco's on a regular basis. So we're not talking about a standard area with a standard convenience store. We're talking about an area with a major alcohol-fueled problem. It is also the agent referred to it being a destination purchase. That is indeed our fear. Our fear is that this will become a destination premises for people to come out of their clubs, tank up on alcohol. This is a well-known issue, go back in again. And the reason why we are asking for the license to be cut back to 11:15 is because we know that this will become a fuel for the problems which are already causing disorder and an unreasonable nuisance to residents. I also note, and apologies, Chairman, because I'm sure you know this far better than I, but just to clarify, the policy says that it's appropriate to generally limit the opening hours to midnight, but the licensing authority will generally expect licensable activities to cease sufficiently before midnight to ensure the efficacy of such a limitation. And what we actually fear is that people will become aware that this is midnight and it will become a destination purchase for quite the wrong reasons, and people will use it to tank up on alcohol, with the result that they hang around well after midnight at a point where local residents are desperate to get to sleep, and there are children in Melton Court who also need to sleep. It's welcome, the conditions the applicant has proposed, but again, it's unlikely that the fact premises will be well managed will be sufficient to demonstrate no exacerbation of the licensing harms will occur. That is again a quotation from the licensing policy. Also, I note that the council reflects that ambient noise levels fall significantly between 11 and midnight. And what we are very concerned about is that this will become a destination store for alcohol off sales at this point. It is absolutely certain that if the council grant this application, everyone else will apply for a similar midnight close. They have done it before. They know that alcohol is profitable. I understand shops need to make a profit. I understand the applicants need to make a profit, but 3/4 of an hour would make an untold difference to residents. And I think we really, really do need to sleep at night and avoid the constant problem of alcohol. And I would also point out that this area is such that the sort of late night drinker could frankly afford Cristal champagne. So the fact that it's going to sell premium alcohol, which is expensive, is not actually going to, it may sort of stop the vagrant purchase, but the late night reveller who's come with his Ferrari and screaming up Exhibition Road is not going to be bothered in the slightest by the premium prices. So I would just give the final observation that, as we've covered, the applicant has not engaged with residents. I would also say that they didn't actually engage with the police before making the application. They clearly didn't read the council policy because they applied for alcohol 24 hours a day. And in discussions with the police, first of all, they asked for 2 a.m. and then eventually only in the face of the police saying absolutely no later than midnight did they cut it to midnight. So it's been a reluctant conversion. I would just say that if this license is granted, I have no confidence at all that the alcohol sales will not result in people queuing up outside to buy alcohol late at night and fueling the ongoing problems we already have, which are well documented, and thus meaning that instead of things calming down by about 11:30, 11:45, we will have problems ongoing well after midnight with consequent impacts on residents who live directly above and all around the premises. I don't think it is unreasonable to ask for a small further reduction in the terminal hour for off sales, given the problems that are in this area. And indeed, all we are asking is that the council apply its own policy, taking into account the long record of problems in these areas. I'm most grateful. Thank you.
Thank you. I think I'll ask Mr. Lawson to present his case so that questions can be asked of both of you after you've both made your presentations. Mr. Lawton.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. First of all, may I just say that I'm the chairman of the Onslow Neighbourhood Association, and we represent some 500 members, and they all live in and around this particular property. We run from our area of interest runs from Pelham Street to Thistle Grove, and from Old Brompton Road up to Fulham Road. There's quite a big area. Now, I'd like to second everything that Ms. Yule has said, but and I don't want to repeat it because everybody's busy, and that is to waste time. All I would say is that we are concerned, as she has mentioned, that this new store is going to exacerbate an existing problem. A midnight cutoff actually means inevitably drinking not at midnight, but up to 1 o'clock in the morning, 2 o'clock in the morning, because if people go in and buy a bottle of wine, they're not going to down it at once. They're going to sit around drinking it. So a midnight cutoff actually is a drinking cutoff quite a lot later than midnight. Also, this is not a delivery service. Now, we've got some of those which have recently opened up, where there are alcohol sales which are then delivered to domestic premises. This is not one of those. And so I have to say, speaking for our residents, I don't believe that they are the people who are going to go in at midnight to buy a bottle of wine. This is designed for itinerants, not residents. They can walk in, buy a bottle of alcohol, whatever, and then, if necessary, they'll be sitting on a street because they haven't got a place to sit. And that's good or bad. But you know, contrasting this with the licenses for tables and chairs in the area, all of those end at 10 o'clock at night. And so it's a slight paradox to me that here you can buy a bottle of alcohol 2 hours after the tables and chairs licenses in the area have already terminated. So it's a strange one. Also, it's my understanding that the policy of the council is not that midnight should necessarily be the default situation, but that the council wouldn't generally grant beyond midnight. So it's not really a policy that midnight is the norm. It's midnight is the absolute limit. And I think that, you know, in view of the fact that the residents, and by virtue of, you've heard how many residents associations did and have got concerns, that it would be respectful of the residents in this area if the committee took note of our concerns. You know, we're not trying to be killjoys, we're not trying to be unreasonable, but you know, it's us who live here, and that's our experience. We're talking from our experience. So that's really where we stand as the Onslow Neighbourhood Association, and we trust that the committee will listen to our worries. Thank you very much, Madam Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Lawton. Could I ask the other members of the committee if they have any questions for either of the objectors?
Yeah, yes, Chairman, I'd like really to address, but could I just sort of start by saying I noticed one other local premises not mentioned, perhaps most relevant, is Treats in the South Kensington Arcade, which is permitted to sell, as the note says here, alcohol to 2,300. So my question to the objectors is, what is the area like, particularly at weekends, between 2300 and midnight. I mean, is it quite lively? People coming out of the tube stations. I mean, not at the present time, of course, but in normal times, or having been out. So just give us a feel of it.
Madam Chairman, may I speak?
Yes, you may.
It's Treats used to have a midnight license, but it was caught selling alcohol to children, and there were quite a few other issues, so it was cut back at a review. The area is actually remarkably busy, and not just at weekends. I come back relatively late at night from seeing friends, etc. Relatively frequently. I will find a lot of people still about right up to midnight. The arcade is busy. On a summer evening, there will nearly always be people sitting on the lanterns either side of South Kensington. There are still a lot of people hanging around outside between 11 and midnight. It's as Charles said, the tables all shut down at 10 o'clock. But there are a lot of people hanging about and coming in and out of the hotels, the Millionaires Club on Cromwell Road, which is on the corner of Cromwell Road and Exhibition Road. So there are people around at that time who would potentially be buying alcohol, but it will not be residents.
Councillor Williams?
Yeah, just as a supplementary to that, I mean, I didn't know about the history of Treats. I mean, when was it cut back? And I mean, did that make any difference, really?
It has helped. It was, I'd have to speculate how long ago it was, but funnily enough, it was at round about the time that Tesco asked for its raised license, because it was raised as a recent case at that time. They had also, I believe, but I should be careful because I can't remember this for certain, also been selling alcohol to the inebriated. But to be absolutely fair, I couldn't swear to it. And certainly that has improved since it was cut back.
I mean, this was probably 6 or 7 years ago, I guess, something like that. Yeah. Yeah. Thank you very much.
Okay. Councillor Spalding.
No questions, Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you. Could I ask Mr. Gibson if you have any questions?
Thank you, Chair. Sorry. Thank you, Chair. No, I don't think I have anything further to raise. I understand what is being said. 23:15 seems okay. Midnight doesn't. I fully understand that, and I would imagine I would basically say that's a matter for yourselves, councillors. But no questions.
Thank you. Ms. the Measurer, do you have anything to add?
No, the only thing I was going to pick up on is whether the applicant could confirm that there aren't going to be any deliveries on the premises.
Yes, I can confirm there has been no request or plans for any delivery of alcohol from the premises.
Thank you.
Licensing officers, is there anything you want to pick up?
Thank you, Chair. No, I can just clarify that the review for Treats was back in 2007. Other than that, that's from me. Thank you.
Thank you. And governance officers?
Nothing to add, Madam.
Okay, well, thank you, everybody.
Chair, sorry to interrupt. We need to go through the draft conditions.
Sorry, of course we do, yes. Who's going to lead on that?
I will, if that's okay with you.
That's fine.
Thank you. I think the applicant did mention that they were happy with all the conditions that were circulated, but obviously we just need to briefly go through them. If we could start at number 1, and if the applicant could, if I'll read out the number, if they could confirm that they're happy, or if they've got any comments, that would be helpful, although I'm aware that they've already said that they're happy with most of them. So condition number 1, are you happy with that?
Yes, we are.
Number 2?
Yes, we are.
Number 3?
Yes.
Number 4?
Yes.
Number 5?
Yes.
Number 6?
Yes.
Number 7?
Yes.
Okay. This is of the red wording is my additional wording, by the way. Number 8.
Yes.
Number 9.
Yes.
Number 10.
Yes.
Number 11.
Yes.
Number 12.
Yes.
Number 13.
Yes. With your amendments, yes.
Thank you. Number 14 and 15 are kind of referred to in condition 21. Number 16.
Yes.
Number 17.
Yes.
18.
Yes.
19.
Yes.
20. I think I'm going to separate them out, but are you happy with them all?
We are, yes.
They're all your ones. 21.
Yes, they've agreed to
2
that.
times a year, and the residents of Melton Court. 22. I think you said that you'd be happy to revise to a minimum of 4-pack cans.
Yes. If that gives comfort to the committee, I'm very happy to move that to 4.
Thank you. 23.
Yes. All spirits behind the counter anyway.
Thank you. 24. You're up with 24?
Yes, we are. Yes, sorry.
25.
Yes.
26.
Yes.
27.
Yes.
28.
Yes.
29.
Yes.
Now there's just a couple more which have like cropped up, which I'd just like to run past you. I think they should be okay. The first one is alcohol shall not be sold or supplied to habitual street drinkers or known vagrants at any time.
Yes, happy with that.
And I think you also mentioned that you would be happy to have some kind of conditions saying no advertisement of alcohol in the store window.
Correct. No advertising or display.
No advertising or display.
Some shops will stack beer in the window and whatever. That will not happen.
Okay, and you already confirmed there'll be no deliveries.
Right.
That's it from me, unless the members have any other conditions in mind that have cropped up during the course of the hearing.
Not from me. Councillor Williams?
No.
Councillor Spalding?
Not from me, Chairman. Mr. Mazurier has covered the 2 items we discussed very well, and the applicant has accepted them. It just worries me that the actual operator of the premises, we've got no reassurance that they've understood that or heard the discussion and realised the importance of it. But otherwise, very pleased with the conditions. Thank you.
Miss Rice has raised her hand.
Yes, hi, good morning. I'm Councillor Healy. I just wanted to check because we do have someone in the meeting who we believe to be the applicant, and I'm not sure if they just haven't pressed unmute to speak to us, or maybe their representative could ask them to unmute themselves and we could possibly hear from them. The guest has joined as Nifras, and I do believe that they may be the applicant. Is the representative able to help us? Mr. Gibson?
Good morning. Yes, I've just sent him a message, actually, just asking him to unmute himself. My mobile phone, I've sent him a message just for clarity.
Thank you very much, Mr. Gibson. We'll just give him a couple of minutes, if that's all right, Chair, because they may well be able to speak to us in the meeting.
Yes, he is listed, but has both camera and microphone off. So perhaps Mr. Gibson could tell him to unmute.
I have asked him again.
Mr. Gibson, have you managed to contact him?
Yes, Chair, I've sent him a couple of messages asking him to unmute himself. If you would like I didn't want to ring him because that would take longer, but if you would like me to do so, I can do.
I think that might be helpful. Yes, please.
Chairman, there's also Mr. Balu Kiru as a guest, who I suspect is Mr. Kirubaran Balasingam, who is also an applicant.
Mr. Gibson, could you contact him as well, please?
Chair, I've just spoken to him and he's going to unmute. I've just asked him to do so.
Which one has
I think that was Nifras. It's Nifras's number I rang anyway.
Okay. Mr. Nifras, can you hear me?
Chair, it now looks like Mr. Nifras has left the meeting. Oh, he's coming back in. He's coming back in. Just give me a second. Mr. Nifras, are you able to unmute now? You're back in the main meeting, Mr. Nifras.
Hello, yeah. Hello, hi, sorry.
Good morning, Mr. Nifras, and welcome to this meeting. We would like to ask you a number of questions about your proposed convenience store. Councillor Williams, I think you wanted to do so.
Sure.
Well, really two questions. One was I'm not quite sure how much of the proceedings you've heard, but we did express concerns about the fact that a large number of, and this is nothing to do with the late hours, the large number of young people from the Lyceum visiting the museums in the area, and that make the point that it's very important to follow the Challenge 25 procedure rigorously. The other point really was raised by the objectors, which was concerned that the other premises in the area that sell alcohol by retail close at 23:15 or earlier, and why is it important to you to go on till midnight? Or if it is this going to just lead to a lot of problems in the local area? Again, don't clear how much of the proceedings you actually heard.
Yeah, thank you, sir. Yeah, basically, I'm Mohammed Nifras, and my business partner is Kirubaran Balasingam. I was here for about 75%, which we were talking about. I was listening. Basically, we spoke to our advisor before. Before that, I have about 6 years as a personal license holder, about 5 years, just about 5 years. And my business partner, he has about 22 years of experience of selling alcohol, and he works around South Kensington as well. We both do. The reason being, we try to apply as long as we can. The rent is too high, and we try to cut it back, at least make some more revenue if you have some extra hours to trade. Yeah.
Do you want to come back, Councillor Williams?
No, thank you.
Councillor Spalding.
Thank you, Chairman. Do we call you Mr. Makeen or Nifras?
Yeah, Mr. Nifras, yeah.
Mr. Nifras. You say you've got 5 years experience and Mr. Balasingam's got 22 years experience, and you both know the South Kensington area very well.
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
So besides the school children who will be coming, in big school trips, and as soon as these kids get a bit of freedom in London, you'll have to be very vigilant about how would you deal with large groups of children coming into the shop?
yeah, of course we need to be very vigilant. Yeah, we serve each and everyone. We don't do serve as a group when it especially comes to alcohol. We'll be dealing with individually, and me and my business partner will be in the shop at any time when the shop is open. Either he do mornings or I do the evenings, or I do the evenings and he do the mornings. And plus 2 members of staff. We are thinking of having 3 people at one time.
But so you're aware of the problem with children that Councillor Williams raised. There are 2 other problems that you have to be aware of. You know that there's a problem with street drinkers who will take their drinks over to the apron of the station and sit outside and drink. And if they'll be drinking till late into the morning, as the objectors have said. So how would you deal with street drinkers who are begging from the tourists and then spending the money on cans of alcohol? How will you deal with them?
Basically, that's why because we had a conversation with the police earlier before, just about to, when you applied, the police had, they were inquiring about that as well. They said to sell not a single, not 2, sorry, a single. We can't sell single cans, and has to be less than 6% of alcohol.
And then finally, the objectors, also the local residents, raised the problem that there are several nightclubs in the area where the drinks at the bar are expensive. So a lot of the customers, the young people in the nightclubs, would come over to your shop and buy your alcohol, which would be a bit cheaper, and drink it in the streets, and then go back into the nightclubs and cause problems. So if you were open till midnight, how would you deal with them?
Basically, try to cut down as much as possible. We're thinking of trading up to midnight. So whatever is before that, we try to cut it down. And by 12 o'clock, we close our doors, if that makes sense. So no one will be let in after midnight.
Okay, so you wouldn't let drinkers in after midnight, only shoppers?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Ms. Whelan, I think you wanted to ask Mr. Nifras some questions. Are you still here?
I'm sorry, Madam Chairman, did you mean me?
No.
Apologies.
Jane Wu wanted to ask questions of Nifras. She said earlier.
Yes, indeed, Madam Chairman. Thank you. I wanted to ask why neither, my apologies, I'm afraid, why Mr. McKean and his business partner have not approached residents for a discussion, given the sensitivity of this area and the Law's residential block directly above the premises.
Thank you for your question. Basically, we are thinking of having a meeting, as mentioned on our notes, every 6 months to meet the local residents and have to listen to their concerns. But because as mentioned earlier, someone was inquiring about the license, which the shop was not changing to Kensington Express or whatever, but still it's pronto print. We're still with the underwriting with the lease premises and still waiting for an addition with other maintenance bodies as well, like planning applications.
I think just to clarify my question, having a discussion with you after the conditions had been agreed is a little bit pointless, because the horse could have bolted because the stable door's been left open. Why did you not actually engage with us on what you were proposing to apply for, so that you could address our concerns before the hearing? Dealing with concerns after a license is approved is really far too late as far as residents are concerned. So why did you not engage with us before you applied?
Yeah, apologies about that. We didn't think about it, so we should have. But yeah, apologies.
Okay, I think that is the end. The committee, I think, has now all. Sorry, Ms. Lemaitre has raised her hand.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to check that Mr. Lawton didn't have any questions, so that everybody's had a chance to question the applicant.
Mr. Lawton?
The only question I had for the applicants is where specifically in South Kensington have they acquired their previous experience of 25 years or thereabouts? Which outlets in the area have they operated and run? Thank you.
Mr. Nifras. Mr. Nifras, you're muted.
Yeah. We didn't have a problem. Sorry, we didn't have a business. We were working for another firm.
I don't fully understand. I thought you said that you had specific experience, and that is your partner for 25 odd years in the immediate vicinity of this area of South Kensington. Have I misunderstood you?
Sorry. I think I'm confused. Sorry. We worked for another firm. We didn't have a shop business in South Kensington area, but we've been dealing with we've been personal license holders since I've been for 5 years and he's about 20 years.
But not in the area of South Kensington.
In South Kensington.
Which premises was that? Was it a retail outlet?
Yes, yeah.
And what's its name?
Treats.
Treats. Oh. That's what you said, treats?
Yeah.
Right. So can you tell us why why your license hours were reduced at Treats?
At that time, I wasn't working. I worked here for less than 5 years, 6 years.
And your business partner, he was at Treats too?
Yeah, but he was working here for some time, for the last 8-10 years, and he was working in Sloan's Care before that.
And he was working at Treats at the time of the problems with the license?
No, he wasn't here.
So,
Chair, I think we can't really go any further with questioning on Treats.
I think you're right.
It's not quite what we. It isn't quite what we understood, though, from what was originally said. Anyway, we'll leave it. Thank you.
Thank you. I think we have now reached the end of the meeting. The committee has all the information we need, so we will retire to make our decision in private session. We will not announce the decision today. Instead, the hearing on this application will be closed and the live broadcast will end. A summary of the decision will be sent to the parties within 5 working days of today's hearing, and a full decision will follow as soon as possible thereafter. Thank you all for attending.
Yeah, appreciate it. Thank you. Good morning.